Push start type of band's cool, but the tent plans. I'm back on my bender rolls for the kicks. They quick to give them 2 cents. Put my circle tight like we glued hands. Like I don't believe in new friends. Trail light, I know the ice thin. I drop the song, get a few wins. I crave the comfort in my own skin. Really, I just wanna feel the world spin. If I check, watch me double that. I get it lit, I watch it bubble.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? This your boy Frankie Fabre with We Are the Brand podcast, presented to you by Fabre Media. And in the studio today, we have a very special guest. She goes by the name Elena. She is a marketing and branding coach or marketing strategist for women entrepreneurs. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And then obviously, I think we both realized that I succeeded in the beginning for the most part, saying your name properly. Because, how do you properly say your name with your accent?
Elena Soboleva.
Okay. And where are you from? Like, what's that accent from?
Russia. To be specific, Siberia.
Okay. Definitely. Well, I'm glad you're here all the way from Siberia, specifically. So, obviously you deal with a lot of, branding and marketing strategy. That's something that, consumes a lot of your time and a lot of your days and having to deal with clients in those particular spaces. But real quickly, before we dive into that, obviously I do want to touch bases on, being a woman entrepreneur, coming from a different country and the challenges that you've had to face and go through to even get to where you are today. I'm sure it wasn't easy, right? I'm sure there's a story in there that some could relate to. And, I also want to tackle, things along social media in terms of being able to help brands and businesses out there that they could probably implement into their brand to help, grow what they're doing. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, just kind of telling the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I have a story. I have a long story. I don't know if you have enough time for that, but definitely have a story to tell and to share. And lately, I've been doing it a lot more, and I feel it's time for me to share my story. I moved to the United States when I was 21. Came here as a student, and it was honestly like just a leap of faith that I took on my last year of college. My college was offering a program to the United States, and I took a chance and I came here. I had no idea what I'm going to be doing here in this country. I had no idea. I didn't speak English. I grew up in a very average family with, I never really had big dreams. But when I had this opportunity, I was like, you know what? I had to take it. And we'll see what happens. So, and from there, it's been a hell of a journey. Let me tell you. It's been up and down, really deep down, really high up. For the first couple of years, obviously, was very miserable and hard and difficult. Learning the culture, the language, just putting my feet down was something that I was focusing on for at least 5 years, my first 5 years in this country. I have never thought of being an entrepreneur, never. My parents did have business in Russia, but they were such a amateur business people, they were learning everything as they were going. So even saw them building their business, I never thought of that. I want to do that too. Like I wanted to have a job 9 to 5, and that's always my goal. And my first dream job in the United States was actually I was dreaming to work in a store, in a retail store.
Yeah.
Because I started working in the kiosks because that's all I could do. I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any education. I didn't speak English. So the only thing that I could do is work in a kiosk, And I was dreaming of working in a regular store. That's how limited were my dreams, That's how far I could only dream.
Right.
And when I got my real job in the store, I'm like, wow, what else I can dream, you know? And from there, and actually for many years, I wanted to be in fashion. So fashion was my huge passion and back then, and it still is. But I wanted to be in a fashion buyer and, do anything fashion related. So eventually I got a job at Louis Vuitton. That was my first real cool job that I could only dream of. I've learned English. I started feeling more confident in myself, and getting this job was just, the top, right? The top of my dreams. And think about it, me coming from a small country, really small town, we never dreamed big. We never it wasn't in my culture. It wasn't in my family. It's just, I've never been surrounded by people who dreamed. Like, it was very average 9 to 5 jobs. It's getting, kids, families, and I never thought of that I can travel. I never thought that dreaming big was scary.
Right.
Because no one around me showed me that it's possible.
Right.
So I was one of the first of in my friends and family who was like, wow, I'm gonna take a leap of faith and move to another country and really follow my guts, my feelings, the stuff that I really ever wanted to do and I saw on TV,
Right.
So moving forward, I joined the gym and started going to the gym, just work out, didn't really think much of that. And eventually I met a personal trainer who prepped me for my first bikini show. And kind of, I think that day when I entered my show, my life really started taking really big leaps of faith, I guess, or something. I entered my first show without even knowing anything about fitness. I learned as I go.
Right.
And I won my first show.
Nice.
I won it. And I remember I was interviewed at the show. They were like, wow, you won your first show. Like, it's so amazing. What are you going to do next? And I'm like, you know what? Now, and I told them, now I'm going to really start dreaming big, because I approved myself that I can do this without any preparation, without any, I just something it helped me to believe in myself.
Right.
It really helped me. And I always thought of myself as an immigrant, as someone who, have to work really hard and just, prove everyone something. But then I'm like, you know what? I just want to really do this stuff that I love, try and challenge myself in anything that I do. And eventually fitness really helped me a lot to become a woman who I am now.
Yeah.
Not only, physically, right, I achieved certain body goals, but also mentally. It helped me become extremely motivated and focused and setting big goals for myself and just achieving them. And that's where the time that I started growing my brand.
Right.
That's the first time that I first experienced the taste of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. That's where I started building my Instagram. First time ever started posting stuff on Instagram. It was 2015, and I was a very shy girl for many years, and posting and putting myself out there like that was very unusual for me. Mm-hmm. But I started doing it, and people started recognizing it. People started noticing me, putting photos and just writing. I was pretty much just talking about my journey, like how I do this fitness stuff, right? First time in my life, I was so passionate about something besides fashion, and it was fitness, completely new thing for me. And I was just sharing stuff that I love with people that I don't know on the internet. It was so weird to me.
I think that's the first place I seen you.
Yeah,
was Instagram.
You did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Is that how we met?
I believe so.
I thought we were introduced by Jay and Mira. No?
Jane, I don't remember.
Oh, over at the nutrition shop down there.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we've like maybe seen each other on social media, and then we lived in the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing you around. I'm like, hold up, that's old girl from Instagram. I'm like, oh, she lives in the neighborhood. Cool. Yeah. And then obviously through similar people that we knew, I think that was the actual like introduction. And then went to the same gym. That's obviously where I met you a lot more.
We made first TikTok together.
We did. Yes. In the gym. So we'll definitely get into that social media part, but I definitely don't want to like pull away from just the amazing story that you're telling. And just to kind of recap so far, a few things that you mentioned that I think that are a lot of people go through, being an immigrant or just coming from a place where having big dreams isn't usual, right? Because a lot of times people try to put fear in our dreams, right? They try to input their limitations. And I tell people all the time is your limitations are not my limitations. So even if we're going on the same journey, it doesn't mean that what you're going to face is necessarily what I'm going to face, because mentally and spiritually, I hold myself to a certain standard. And that standard doesn't allow me to fold under particular pressures that you would probably fold under. Mm-hmm. So in that right, we're not the same. Nonetheless, I will have to respectfully disagree with the fear that you're trying to put on me. But what tends to happen is that's a majority of people, mm-hmm. right? Is see, you stepped out on faith, right? Faith is a substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen, right? Rather than fear, which is the opposing force of faith. It's the thing that limits us, right? It paralyzes us. It puts us in a place where we can't grow. We can't take things to the next level. And the way to beat fear is to operate in that faith that you did. And there's different levels of it, of course, to come from an entire different country, to come to America, not knowing the language or the culture, and being limited by your upbringing, right? Your family had certain limitations because of the town and the city that you grew in. The things you're doing now are dreams to them over there, right? Which is a beautiful thing to be able to even say. But the reality is you had to go through that to even get to where you are now. And one of the questions I want to ask you in terms of being somebody, from, Siberia and seeing America, like before being in America, what was your perspective? Like, be completely honest, and then we can switch it over to what do you believe now about it. But being over there, seeing America, how did you interpret the United States? What was your perspective?
So the picture in my head was, imagine the movie Home Alone. Uh-huh. Those little small streets, perfect little houses, family gatherings, everyone's eating peanut butter for some reason.
Peanut butter? Oh, that's great.
And I just in New York was one of the, saw something that I've seen a lot in the movies. Yeah. Sex and the City was the TV show that I grew up with.
In Russia?
Yeah, watching those, life of those women and seeing how
they have
dressed.
Real quickly, I'm just wondering, since we're on this, we won't stay on it. So you watching that, did they have subtitles or were people's voiceovers over it?
Voiceovers.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely voiceovers. It was, and that's actually how eventually I watched all the movies, all the TV shows with, Russian translation. But the funny thing, back then in 1990s, when I was watching all of that on 2000s, there pretty much was one voice.
Oh, no way.
All the movies. One voice.
That's great.
So when I was eventually started learning, English, and I started watching the same movies in English, it was a whole completely different experience. And I'm like, wow, okay, they sound different. Now I understand things, And that's how I started learning English little by little, already being here.
Yeah.
Watching those same movies that I watched, rewatching them with subtitles, and little by little I started picking up some jokes and culture and stuff like that. But a lot of the, a picture of America came from those TV shows, Friends, Sex and the City, whatever, what it was, The Scrubs, mm-hmm. House MD. I watched them all.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then versus now, how do you interpret America now?
Interesting. Now, and I'm still feeling like, I've been in Chicago for 5 years, and before that I was in Florida for 5 years. So big contrast in, states.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I still see this country as the most beautiful place, and I travel a lot around the world and, my country, and I still feel very happy here, and certain things that, that I probably never understand as, an immigrant, but I still see this country as a beautiful place of opportunities, no matter what is it going through,
Right.
So compared to where I came from, compared to my country, it's always going to be a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really grateful to be here.
No, that's beautiful. Being here and living here and being born here, it's easy to not recognize how grateful or recognize how blessed we are and be grateful for what it is that we have. And, every country has their own challenges, right? One thing we can never do is, despite, where we come from, where we're at is someone's reality, you know? And so to like, for instance, for you, that may not be a challenge. You're like, yo, this is not that hard, or this is not that difficult. To somebody else is like, no, like this is unacceptable, or this is not okay. Right. Obviously government and location in the world has a lot to do with how we perceive life, right? Because at the end of the day, life is how you perceive it. And if your mind is like you once used to have you were small-minded in terms of your family and your culture and not dreaming big, that was your own limitations that you put on yourself. And as you begun to go through life and succeed and have these wins and these W's and these challenges, and overcoming those, your perspective on life became a little bit more broad. And so your dreams became a lot bigger, you know? And so that's one of the things I believe is super important. And with just life in general is allow yourself space to grow, right? And give yourself the patience you need to develop a perspective that's going to get you to where you want to go in life. And like, obviously that's a challenging thing, especially, you know, being an immigrant, like, here in America. So you came, you went to college in Siberia. What college did you go to?
You know, it's funny because I went to Aerospace University, but I studied marketing. I have no idea why it was like that.
And so at that program, so they had a program to come to the U.S.
Yeah, so it was an exchange program for students, work and travel, that allowed students to come to United States for a couple months to work and study. I'm sorry, to work and travel.
Yeah.
So it was, and it's funny because it was my last year of college. So I was finishing everything, and it was literally my only opportunity because after that, they didn't give programs like that to students. And I think me and two other girls from my class who got visa to come here, and everyone else didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, I'm top 3 who got it. It's a destiny. Like, I have to be here.
Right. And so you went to Florida.
Yes, I was in Florida first.
What part of Florida?
So I started at Tampa.
Oh, okay. I used to live in Tampa.
And imagine it was so crazy because I remember getting there from the airport, and I'm in my head, I see America as New York, right? Those small streets, people walking with coffee,
right,
you know, girls
right.
wearing heels, everyone dressed super nice. And I'm in Florida, I'm in Tampa, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I'm like, is it America? Is it like some fake country? Where am I? Like, this is not America. What are you talking about? Yeah, so for the first couple of months, I honestly did not like Florida at all. It's never really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It was too hot, and I'm a Siberian girl. Like,
wow, so you didn't like the palm trees?
Oh, no. I'm like, it's good for a couple months, but then after that, I'm like, I need snow. I was craving snow.
Yeah.
So eventually, Florida was my really first, stop, and it was good because it was not as big as Chicago. So I was able to really dive into the just putting my feet on the ground.
Right.
Learning language, I even learned Spanish a little bit.
Yeah.
Just slightly. I eat Portuguese too, and because we had a lot of tourists.
Yeah,
there.
Florida is I think has one of the most nationalities, like over 180 different nationalities in one state.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were from South America, and that's where I actually developed this. First ever, I saw people speaking different, speaking Spanish, first of all, and also everyone has different accents, and they were also looking differently. And, I came from a little town that I've never seen a person a different color or a different,
Hold up, let's wait right there. I want to bank on that. So you've never seen a color person?
No.
So you guys have no color people in Siberia?
It's all the same. It's all one race, one color, one people, one language.
So on a TV show, you didn't see color people?
I mean, in person, I've never seen
right.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And, unfortunately, actually just recently spoke to my mom about it. I grew up very black and white in the case of race. Right now, just growing up in the country where we're very like racist, and that's unfortunate. And I grew up seeing things in this particular way.
Like they're racist in Siberia?
Yeah.
Racist against who?
Just in Russia in general.
Okay.
And again, unfortunately, growing up there, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't get it. Like you just say do things the way your parents and your friends and everyone else is doing. So me moving to this country, seeing different colors, different languages, different everything, and it was such a shock. It was a cultural shock.
Wow. And
then eventually, somewhere like inside of me, I always was a person, very kind person, and very accepting to anyone. And I don't know how. No people. My parents never told me that.
Right.
I kind of developed that myself. So when I came here, I was craving to learn those cultures.
Yeah.
I was craving to meet different people and hear their languages and how they speak, and talk to them, where they from and how do they live. So, and eventually, everyone became my friends. I had so many friends from all kinds of different countries, black, white, doesn't matter. Like, I never looked at that. It was, I was an international kind of girl,
Yeah.
So that was a big eye-opening for me moving here.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually. It's not something that, for me, being from America, that I think about, where it's like, I've never had to be like, hey, I've never seen a white person, or I've never seen a colored person. Like we see everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are places in certain neighborhoods, in certain communities, where there is not a mixture of people. And I mean, being in Chicago and being from Chicago, I don't know if you notice it, but it's actually a very like segregated city. At the same time, it can easily be blind to it if you're not used to that. But like in Chicago, we know where the blacks live, we know where the Mexicans live, we know where the whites live, we know where the gays live, we know where, like, you know what I mean? It's very like,
you see, I don't know that.
Yeah, it's a very segregated city, but I'm glad you don't have to notice it. At the same time, for me, it doesn't mean that I'm like controlled by it, because for me, I love every person. I'm a people's person in terms of, I see the authenticity and the beauty in every individual for who they are, and the value that they bring. It's that particular thing that I truly believe has allowed me to build certain relationships, is because I look at a deeper thing versus just what I see,
Exactly.
which is important, right? Which is very important. But nonetheless, it's a beautiful thing to even hear that. I never thought that I would meet somebody who's never like grown up, never once ever in your life met somebody of color, and like in your whole town, nobody's color. That's wild. Well, I'm glad you're here in America and you get to experience all cultures and races. But not to, stay too long on that topic, because that can go left real quick. But just to fast forward, right? So you came here on a working travel visa. You're here in the States. You get to, well, first, now you're in Florida. So I'm sorry. I lived in Florida for 6 years, so I know how it is out there. I've lived in Tampa for 3 years as well. And I can understand the difference being from Chicago, what that experience might be like. So you're going into palm trees, you're thinking it's going to look like New York. I'm sure that in itself was wild, but I'm glad you were able to experience those multiple cultures in Florida, because that's the first time I've met so many different nationalities was moving to Florida. It showed me a lot more than Chicago, in terms of the world being bigger. Because you could have a Chicago state of mind real quick. But so you moved to Florida. So what made you come to Chicago versus New York? Which, in my opinion, I love New York, and all my friends out there, what's up? But Chicago's better. But that's subjective, I guess. But what made you choose Chicago versus New York, considering Home Alone's in New York area?
That was a total gut feeling. I came to New York just to check it out. And as much as I wanted to live in that city because of those movies and those dreams that I've had, I didn't feel it. And I'm a person who's very, very connected with my inner self. And walking through the streets of New York, I felt I wasn't happy. And that's it. That simple. I'd spent there a week, and I'm like, you know what? This is not my place. It's just not. And I came back to Florida. And then I came to Chicago, again, as a tourist, just to check it out. And the moment I stepped outside the plane, you're not going to believe, I'm like, wow, this is the place for me.
Was it during the winter?
No, it was.
Okay.
I know. It was August, and it was beautiful. It was magical. The energy of the city just spoke to me. I loved every single corner of this city. It's something just internal, and I really believe, honestly, I'm a very spiritual person, and lately I, got a lot more into astrology and stuff like that, and learning about the universe and all of this, how it works. And I also truly believe that every person has their own city, their own place where they are more magnetic, where are more energetic, where they connected to that energy of this specific place. So for me, it was Chicago. And I traveled a lot around the United States, outside different countries, but Chicago, it's in my heart. Like, I want to come back here. I miss when I travel. I miss my home. So, and then moving forward, I came here. I knew this should be Chicago. It has to be Chicago. But I didn't feel comfortable enough living in a big city yet.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to Florida, keep working, saving money, just developing myself as this little new American girl. And eventually, after 5 years, I knew it was time. That's where I started competing. I started growing my Instagram. I started growing my brand. And I'm like, you know what?
That's when you came to Chicago.
That's right.
So you started your fitness in Chicago.
I started it in Florida for like maybe 6 months. And eventually, I was working at Louis Vuitton. Everything was great. I had an amazing job.
In Florida?
Yeah. And I started getting into fitness. I started competing there. And I'm like, you know what? I think I want to become a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So eventually, I quit my job. I quit Louis Vuitton. I broke up with my boyfriend. I sold my car, I sold my stuff. I sold everything that I had. And I bought one-way ticket to Chicago, and I came here.
Wow.
It was August 2016. Never looked back. I came here. I didn't know anyone. I did not know anyone. I didn't had a job lined up at that time. I had some money saved, and I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
As I did before. And came here, stayed, eventually, met friends, and I always were meeting really good people because I just feel like I attracted good people in my life, and I'm very grateful for that. And they were able to host me in their house for free and let me stay with them. And but I remember just stepping outside and I'm also I visualized a lot of the stuff that I want and I dream. And I remember always when I lived in Florida, every single day I was going to work. It was so hot. And I hated it. It was so hot. And I had to walk to work, and I'm just like walking. And I remember closing my eyes and I'm looking up there and I'm like, oh, and I see those skyscrapers. But I've never really seen skyscrapers, and I'm just like seeing those big buildings and just like. So my first day in in Chicago when I moved, I'm walking outside and I'm like looking up and I started crying because this is exactly what I saw in my imagination. Those exact skyscrapers. So I knew this is it. It has to be it. And since then, honestly, it's been a blessing to be in this city, and everything was just, there was definitely a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Not knowing anyone, building my network, studying a new job, new career in fitness. Very challenging, yet really rewarding. I was able to build great network of people and worked at one of the best gyms in the city. I was working at Equinox for about 6 months. So Chicago it's in my heart.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And, what was something that I see a lot of challenge, a lot of having to persevere, a lot of stepping out on faith for you. What was the thing that you held yourself to, that you kept in your mind? Like, what allowed you to push through? Because I'm sure you had some moments of breaking down or not knowing or unsure about what to do next, like, what kept you solid? What kept you rooted?
You know, one phrase that helped me a lot throughout this whole journey is never give up. And I told myself that so many times. But in my head, I told myself, listen, the worst thing that could happen on this journey is you're going to go back home. You're going to go back home to your home, small hometown. You're going to live with your parents. And this is, in my head, was the worst thing that could happen to me. That's why I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just keep trying. Keep trying until I fail really, really bad. Nothing, I got fired so many times. That honestly was the biggest blessings.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at things that no matter how challenging the stuff that is happening right now, it's sometimes we don't realize why it was happening to us, right? We could go through like the worst breakup, or we lost our job, or we got fired, or we lost our business, whatever that is. Every time that happened, you don't realize why it's happening to you. But moving forward, if you were able to go through it, you're gonna look back and be like, wow, this is why it happened to me. This is why I had to went through it, because I either went into a completely new path in my life, or I've learned something, or it changed me, or I met someone else that helped me better or different, or whatever that is. And that's every single time that some challenging things happened in my life, instead of crying and being like, oh my God, what am I doing next? I was like, thank you. Thank you for this situation.
Right.
I'll take it as it is. I'm grateful that it happened. Now I'm going to find a different path.
Right.
And many times that, I started my first business. I started my new career in fitness. And I thought that this is going to be the thing for me. I was working at the best gym at Equinox. Everything was great. I'm living in the best city of my dreams. I'm working at the best gym. 6 months later, I got fired. And I got fired because I was building my brand on the side, my personal branding, my personal training business, my Instagram. So I was on photo shoots. I was all over the city trying to network and learn and like just build my network. And people in those corporate gyms never want me to be that girl who's everywhere.
Right.
And they fired me. I thought it was the worst thing happened to me. But moving forward, I'm like, thank you, because that helped me to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And those moments, and again, I got fired many times. I'm not hireable. That's why I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing my own thing.
Right.
But again, and then I had a really, really challenging breakup. I fell in love, and I thought this man was one of my first people that I met in Chicago. Fell in love like crazy. And we started living together. So he really helped me out at the beginning, and because I didn't know anyone, so he introduced me to so many his friends. So I started building my network. But 6 months later, after being together, he woke up one day and told me, you have to go. No, never explained me what happened, never told me why he breaking up. He just said, you have to go. And that moment I realized, wow, what do I do now? Like, went back to square one, and I packed my bags. I left his house the same moment, the same day he told me that. Never saw him, never talked to him. But went through very difficult stage. But that stage helped me get into spirituality. I got into spirituality, meditation. I started learning myself, which is now is incredible. I'm so grateful that it happened to me. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I got my own place, started building myself back up. And now looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm grateful that he broke up with me. Because if I never went through this breakup, I've never been the woman who I am now.
Right.
So, yeah, that's...
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that just hearing in terms of even like the relationship thing, dealing with the matters of the heart is A tough thing, especially when you fall in love with somebody. And when you fall in love, you fall hard. And it being that first person that you feel like you had that connection with in Chicago, I'm sure it was a tough situation. But what I'm picking up from you is, despite all of the adversity and despite all of the challenges, for you, you found gratitude. You found a reason to be grateful. You found a reason to keep your head up high, even if it wasn't easy in that exact moment. Looking back, you can connect the dots and recognize, okay, there seems to be a pattern every time I face some type of challenge. This is going to in some way grow me or direct me or get me to where I need to go. Ultimately, I think that in life, that's what it's about, right? It's about how we respond. That's what it's about. You can have two people to go through the exact same thing and the outcomes be completely different because how they chose to respond to the situation. And a lot of times that response is predicated on how you believe and what you think in that exact moment, right? So, being able to take a particular, situation like that and turn it into something great is a powerful thing, and those are powerful people. So, I applaud you for that. That's dope. So, I mean, the story already is amazing. You as an individual, I can tell, you're a very sweet person, driven person, willing to take risk type of person. How did that transition into you becoming who you are today, dealing with being a branding coach, being a marketing strategist? Because I know that when I met you and we started first having conversations, I believe it was in that transition. I believe you were in the fitness, kind of recognizing that, fitness isn't something you necessarily want to do, and you transitioned into, marketing and branding and stuff like that. So when did you start? Why did you start? And tell me where you're at now.
Yeah, so another story actually.
Okay, no, please.
Failing and
a failing story?
Failing and going in a different direction. So eventually when I grew my fitness business, I started doing online fitness, online training, started selling digital courses, ebooks, and I was one of the first one in this industry, like the wave that just came out. I was one of the first one of this wave of creating digital products in fitness community. But I realized that I didn't know anything about it, right? I didn't know how to build an online business because I was really fitness oriented. And every free moment, every free time that I had, I was learning digital marketing for my own business.
Right.
My Instagram started growing. I built my following to 150,000 followers. Mm-hmm. Everything was going great, and I was sponsored by many companies. I started traveling around the United States, competing and working with brands. But then yet I realized I want more. I wanted to build my own business in there. So learning digital marketing was at the beginning strictly for my business, for my brand. And then I realized that I really like it. Yeah. I really enjoy marketing, and I wanted to be creative because I'm a creator at heart, and that allowed me to combine my creative mind plus analytical mind plus all of this together. And then I started thinking of wow, maybe I can explore that too. And I applied really randomly. I'm like, that's another leap of faith. I found a job online, a marketing assistant manager, and I applied, and I got hired. And eventually, I started learning marketing. I started doing paid media for Planet Fitness. That was a complete new direction for me. But I was so open to learn, so open to explore that industry and just understand how can I apply that to myself? Yeah. So started learning that as on the side, still doing my fitness training online. And then eventually, little by little, I started transitioning fully into marketing. And then eventually I started working for a social media company where I was fully creating content, videos. I started learning videography, photography, working for small businesses here in Chicago. And then I'm like, I'm taking this new leap of faith again. I stopped training and I went completely full into marketing. And then eventually 2020, right before 2020, no, COVID, 2020, I started my own company, eSocial Club. And then COVID hit, 2020, March 2020. I already had some clients, so that was fine. But one day I woke up and realized, and a lot of my clients were coming from my Instagram. So my page, the stuff that I built through fitness really were helping me a lot. And I woke up one day to a message that my Instagram got hacked. For some random person who was blackmailing me, asking me to pay to get my account back. And I realized that I'm losing right now my brand, my clients, everything that was connected to Instagram, all the sponsorships that I had, all those network that I've built through my page were gone.
Yeah.
I refused to pay and they deleted my account. And it's COVID. And I'm like, what's now? And I'm like, wow. Any other person would be like, you know what? I'm not doing this. Like, I've already done this Instagram thing. Like, I'm not going to do this again. Like, I took a time off for like 2 months just to connect with myself. I stopped doing everything. And, I still had my clients for social media that I was just managing their pages at that time, just creating content for them. And luckily, their business during COVID actually were up, and it helped me because they were up. My business were up too.
Right.
But eventually, I took a time off, and I'm like, what do I do now? What the direction are you going to take now? I spent a lot of time meditating, just going on walks. Everything was closed. I didn't work out. I started getting more into yoga and just really connecting with myself. And then I start questioning myself, what's next? What is the next step? But to my surprise, people who were following me on my old page, they started reaching out to me. They were emailing me. They were trying to find me. And then I realized that without even thinking about it, I built a very strong personal brand.
Right.
I was known for fitness, but then yet people were connected to me for something else. And my personal brand helped me to start everything all over again. I started a new page. People found me. They started following me again. And then they were so happy to just be with me. And I realized that I'm taking a new leap of faith, completely changing everything. I'm going into personal branding and helping people do what I've done.
Yeah.
Build a personal brand, not through just through who you are, through your story.
Right.
And help people to discover those stories, and especially women. Just because a lot of my girlfriends are also immigrants, also came from nothing, and they still struggling with understanding and finding themselves here. And I started just talking to them just as girlfriends. And eventually I'm like, you know what? I've seen so much potential in every single woman that I've met, but they haven't seen them in themselves. And I remember myself being like that. And that's why, you know what? Maybe this is my calling, to be that person, to help them, because I wish I had myself back then.
Right.
I wish I had someone who would help me to believe in myself, who helped me to build this brand. I was just doing it because I was just trying different things here and there, and it worked out. So, and they really, and that's why personal branding, something that I'm, tap into now, and I'm helping small businesses, entrepreneurs, build and help them build their authentically show up on stories and share the stories, share their passion.
Definitely. No, I mean, I've seen that transition. I've seen, where that was and where you're taking it. You're doing a great job. I see you're a lot more vocal. You're putting yourself out there a lot more. What I want to do now is kind of take a little bit of time before we end things here to talk about, certain strategies and maybe dive into a few different things in terms of providing people with some things to consider or things to do when it comes to building a brand online through social media and stuff like that. What are your first initial steps when you're dealing with a client?
So number one thing that I suggest to do anyone who wants to start building their personal brand is really step back and start thinking of yourself as, what are my strengths? What is the things that I truly shine at? Maybe it is your expertise. Maybe there's something that you're truly passionate about. Maybe there's just something that people always come to you for an advice. And start building from there, right? Never compare yourself to any other person out there, because it could be very easy and really, it's so easy to compare. It's so easy to think that it's already been done, that it's already out there. Who am I to say that? Who am I to talk to tell this story? But trust me, you have a story to tell. You have a unique perspective of how you see things and how you can share that message that you have. Own it and have it. And another thing that also, it's self-development, something that helped me a ton. Just being, learning yourself, understanding yourself through mindfulness, through meditations, through being healthy overall, just taking care of your health. And I see it more and more, this new wave of, mindfulness that people are getting into. And I'm honestly very happy to see this change, that people are taking care of themselves. They're putting self-care first. And that's why I believe that fitness helped me a lot to become who I am now, and building not only building my brand, but building myself. Because this is also always going to be number one thing.
Right.
So taking care of yourself, putting time into your own self-development and growth. You don't know everything. Consistently learn, consistently educate yourself. And from there, find those passions of yours that you can share with the world and your message.
Definitely. So let's just say, okay, I have my passion, and I know what I want to do, and I'm always, self-developing and learning and being a student to the game. I have a product or a brand as an individual. What are some key things that I should do to get myself out there?
Also, number one thing, think about it. Choose a platform that you could shine the most. And what is your zone of genius? Some people are really good at writing. Some people are really good at speaking. Some people are good on the videos. So finding your zone of genius of what is the easiest way for you to create content that you consistently can create, that you consistently could put out there, right? Popular platforms like Instagram, it's been there for so long, and it's very saturated, and it's all over the place right now. Yet it's also still find a way to put your message out there on those platforms. I would suggest to choose a couple of platforms at the beginning, because it could be very overwhelming, and build that community around. Start building the community on those platforms. I've seen people shine on Twitter, building an amazing, crazy community just from tweets.
I love Twitter.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite platforms.
I'm not in there because writing is not my strongest thing,
Well, Twitter now they have different things that you can do on it, different groups. You can host certain things. You could do voice memos on there. You could post pictures. It happens on Twitter before it happens on Instagram. I swear. Does it not?
The trend's happening there.
Right. Yeah. The trends are happening on Twitter, and then, it hits IG or a lot of the memes and things like that. But anyways, I love Twitter. Twitter, then Instagram for me.
I remember starting a Twitter, and I post back when I had my fitness account. and I posted something and I misspelled something. And I'm like, I feel so terrible. And I'm like misspelling and something, you know, like English is my second language.
Right.
And then like I always feel so bad misspelling something. So when I do it on Twitter, I feel so bad. But when I do it on Instagram, I'm like, okay, my community knows me.
Right. Well, you could use Grammarly. That's
always.
Do you use Grammarly?
It messed me up too sometimes, you know.
Yeah. So, okay. So finding a platform and establishing, you know, understanding your zone of genius, right? Understanding what you're great at, whether it's writing, whether it's being in front of video, whether it's speaking, designing, etc. Finding what it is that you do great at. Then taking that and finding the platform that suits what you do best, and then building a community around that. So when it comes to developing content for those platforms, how do you go about it, and what are some strategies that you use when either one, finding things to post, how to post it, and when to post it?
Well, as far as content, when you understand what is your message, what are you trying to put out there, and who is your community is, then the content is, you have to know your audience. You have to know the audience. You also have to understand do some research, do some simple market research on what is it out there, what is it happening right now. And social media changes so fast and so quickly. It's something that you have to be on top all the time.
Right.
But then yet finding those trends, finding what is happening, and then tweak it in a way that is aligned with you.
Right.
How can you make it different? How can you make it... I give you an example of TikTok, right? Or Reels, that is short form videos that are so popular right now, that's happening.
Yeah, Reels are, where's that?
YouTube Shorts, all of that, right? And I see so many people are dancing, right? Doing all those funny dances. And you know, for some people, that could be easily applied. Maybe that works for them. But then find a way to make those trends and to make those things that already been working, but tweak it in a way that works for you, right? If you take a short video, and maybe you will create your own trend, right? Or your own dance, or but always twinkle it back, change it, but always connect it to your business or to your brand, or to you, to your message. Don't just hop on a trend because it's trendy.
Right.
Because you can create a video that will go viral, but then yet you're not going to attract the audience that you are trying to attract, the community that you're trying to build.
Right.
That's why hopping on trends is great only if you can tweak it and circle it back to what you do and what's your original message is.
Right.
And I give you an example. I started my TikTok, which at that time I didn't know what I'm doing. I was just testing it out, and I made one video that went viral. I think it hit like 1.2 million views, but it had nothing to do with me, my brand, or my business. So I gained 60,000 followers from one video that has nothing to do with me. So all the audience that I've attracted.
What were you doing?
I was dancing.
Yeah, what kind of dancing?
I was dancing. Of course. I mean, it was just a cute dance, trending song, little dress. Simple. That's how you can go viral.
Right.
Very simple.
As long as it's a little dance and a little dress, you know what I mean? We're going viral out there.
But now, I wish I would be more strategic with that. You know, I wish I would be there, doing it a little bit in a different way. So that's why trends are happening all the time. Social media is all about trends. It's happening. It's changing. It's something new comes up and go out. But the people who winning is the people who able to use those trends and build a community.
Yeah. No, definitely. I appreciate those gems. So, you know, a few things that I picked up from you is obviously, one, find your zone of genius, find what you're good at. Once you find where you're good at, find a platform where your audience exists. Once you find your audience, understand how they talk, their conversation, what they like, what they don't like. Then if you're finding particular trends, make sure that if you're going to jump on a trend, have it tweak it to your brand or who you are, find things that can relate to what you're doing. So when you get it out there, and obviously it's trending, so many people are looking for it, it can then come back to your brand with the actual audience that your brand is trying to service or trying to have, community with. So yeah, no, definitely. And before we jump off, is there, to people out there to women out there, or just people in general that want to, follow that entrepreneurism, or do those particular things, is there any final words that you would like to share?
I do want to say, give a message to any aspiring entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs. It is not an easy road, and it's maybe not for everyone. Let's be honest with you. And it's right now, it's time when people are glamorize this, entrepreneurship, and how, you can work with your laptop and and travel the world, and you can do that. Absolutely. But you have to realize that it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and no matter, and be able to learn as you go, and be able to get up when you fail. And if you can do that, you gotta go ahead and try. Go ahead and try and do it, and put all 100% into that. And remember your why. Remember why you're doing this. Is it why you decided to step into this on this path of building your own brand and building, your business. My why always were freedom. I wanted to be free financially, space, time. I wanted to jump and do whatever I want and express myself as much as I want without anyone telling me anything. So remember your why, because there's going to be days when you wake up and you don't want to continue doing this. Surround yourself with people who will help you to get up and go during those days.
Right.
And remember, there will be people who's not going to be believing in what you do. There will be people who's going to doubt you, and that will just amplify your self-doubt even more. Mm-hmm. But don't listen to them.
Right.
Because when people tell you something negative about that you can do something, it's just because they never were able to do that.
Right. They're pushing their limitations on you. They're
pushing it on you. And I have personally experienced that myself when I wanted to start a YouTube channel back in 2018, and I started it. And I started doing it. I posted like 5 or 6 videos. I was so passionate about it. But my closest friends were doubting me. They were doubting me. They told me that it's stupid, they told me that no one cares. And I started doubting myself. And then I stopped. Mm-hmm. So don't listen. Don't listen. Right. Just believe in yourself no matter what, or find the people who are as bad as you are, who's going to help you and push you even further.
Right. No, absolutely. Final words. I truly appreciate that. And, just to add a little bit to it, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, people have this preconceived idea of what it is to be an entrepreneur. And they are far from recognizing that that's not their role or what they're even great at doing. I don't believe entrepreneurism is for everybody. I do believe freedom is for everybody. But sometimes you may not be the business owner. Maybe you're a great number 2 person, right? That can help orchestrate that, right? There's success in every area. And like you had mentioned before, everybody's on this hype of being an entrepreneur, especially now, with the internet, everybody's a CEO. Everybody is one of those things, but and that's fine. By all means, everybody should try. It's not me downplaying people's efforts, but the reality is we're going to be able to differentiate the real from the fake, or being able to differentiate who is really called to do something like that. Because I think there's different levels of entrepreneurism. Like for me, being an entrepreneur is in terms of developing an agency and building a brand. I've always had a desire to build a brand so that way I can create opportunities for people to live the life, to be able to live as a creative and also live a life for themselves as well, right? Where my success comes from a actual functioning, running thing that I've created. That's something for me that I attach myself to. And then with that, the byproduct of that is, financial freedom. The byproduct of that is doing that. But having the ability to feed mouths and feed families and put roofs over your heads, that's for me as an entrepreneur why I want to be one. A lot of times people get into that space of being an entrepreneur, or they think that it's their calling because they see the glamour, the highlights, great accolades and accomplishments and the praise that it gets online. The reason why it gets that praise and all those accolades online is because of how damn difficult it is. You have to realize that unless you're willing to check off on the boxes on this list that says I'm willing to have sleepless nights, I'm willing to probably go broke, I'm willing to probably have no money, I'm willing to have to deal with things by myself, I'm willing to be lonely, I'm willing to deal with a lot of these things, and I'm talking about at a higher caliber of being an entrepreneur. If you can't check off all those things on a box and really still have peace within yourself, then it's probably in a call for you. This probably isn't the right move for you, and that much is okay as well. It's just finding the reality of who you are, as you said, having that sense of self-awareness is paramount in order to truly get to where you want to get in a place that is peaceful internally. And I think that that's super important and vital. So, yeah, hey, Elena, I appreciate you for jumping on the podcast, taking time out of your day to just share with the people your story. I think it's wonderful. If people are out there, if they don't think they can do it and you were able to do it, coming from a completely different place here in America and still persevering and still growing, right? They should be able to, they have that possibility as well. And I hope that, you were able to make that possible for them. So we're going to go ahead and pull off. But before we end, if you could just tell them here where they can find you, where your social media is and stuff like that.
You can find me on Instagram, obviously, elenasoboleva.es, or all my handles are the same. Yeah, elenasoboleva.es. So DM me if you ever need any help, advice, support, or just a little, boost of motivation and empowerment. I gotcha.
Sweet. I appreciate that. And for everybody out there, go ahead and make sure you follow her. We're going to put all of that into the description. Follow her on her Instagram and all over the social sites. We'll definitely put that in screen so that way you can connect. And for anybody out there who's yet to subscribe to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. At this point, like I've said many, many times before, this podcast is merely to inspire, to impact, and to really just bring perspective, and having people on the show that have stories that you might be able to relate to, and hopefully in relating to them, it'll be able to take you from one place to the next, or even enlighten you or give you something to hold on to that you've been looking for. And if you have found that in this podcast or in any other podcast, make sure you send it and pay it forward. Somebody out there might need it, so share it. And also drop some comments in the comment section. Keep the dialogue going. You might have some questions, or you might feel like there are topics of discussions that you would like us to discuss here on the show, or get particular guests. Let me know. Let's make it happen. And all the social platforms, social media, we got IG, TikTok, Facebook, etc. You can find us on all those. We'll have it in the description and even right here on the bottom of the screen. So until then, you guys take care. Peace.